Thank you so much for having accepted my invitation. I'm really happy to have you in my journal program. And I want just to introduce you shortly. So you are a painter and now also a sculptor, and you are an international artist with a big experience to show your work in America, and now I know that you have an exhibition in Belgium and another one in Ireland, in Dublin, at the Green on Red Gallery. I want just to know just your experience with this new way to show your work, because with this restriction it's impossible now to visit probably in the reality, or just you have to go with an appointment to visit the shows. And so how you are living this situation?
I think all these kind of restrictions and shutdowns have happened so fast that I think, the art galleries and art institutions and business in general have had to pivot really quickly and find a new way of continuing to exist. A lot of places aren't getting rent relief, so they have to keep the business operating to some degree. And I think as well, like if you look at coffee shops in local towns, they would have to find a way to kind of suddenly become takeaway only and kind of keep the business going and lower overheads. And I think, the art world has had to do the exact same. So, luckily over the last kind of maybe 10 years, galleries have gone more digital. Like they've focused on web presence. Some galleries have been like brilliant, focusing on like Instagram and, and Facebook to a lesser extent. And, these have kind of helped them sort of survive, I guess. They kind of continue on. How well they're surviving, it's hard to know. We're in the middle of it. Gallery exhibitions being solely online, I think, is hugely problematic in the long run.
Yeah.
I don't think that art exists in the virtual space that well, like unless it's digital art. But then again, kind of contemporary digital art tends to be a commentary on, the internet and kind of like the digital age. So it tends to need to be in a physical space for it to operate. So yeah, I think in the long run, physical spaces need to exist. But physical spaces have been under threat since the rise of art fairs. Art fairs have become these kind of institutions that kind of run the art market, and people are starting to sort of see, well, there's two sides. There's one side seeing, that you don't need bricks and mortar, and then another side thinking that you do. So there is this kind of conflict there. So I think maybe on a positive note, it's great that a lot of the art fairs have stopped. They can't exist at the moment, and that might be a good thing. And but the bricks and mortar shows, they're what I care about the most, and they're important for me. So with the two shows I've on at the moment, one in Green and Red and one in Stefan Simone's, they're both physical shows, so you can go see them to an extent, I guess, by appointment. Soon, I'm not sure if that's happened yet, but it will be soon. But they've had a virtual or digital existence before, and I think, as I was saying, there has been a shift towards that. And I think, being an artist in Ireland, you have to be aware of the power of getting your work out there digitally. And I think most Irish artists are brilliant at it, and the younger artists coming up are even better again at it. They're really kind of getting out there, and it's brilliant to see. So I think that is great, and I think it's helped them a lot in this kind of lockdown. I think that's kind of the only kind of concern there is international travel in the future.
No, that's fine.
That's probably a different conversation.
But I think it's your work. They are very good work that you need to have a physical experience. Standing in front of your work, you can appreciate all the depth of your paintings, of your brush stroke. And I think now with this sculpture that they are giving an extra value of to your work, I think it's really important to stay there stand in front of your work, because they are beautiful work with now this installation that can give really an extra feelings, experience, so,
Yeah.
and be in connection with.
But you kind of, the word there that I think kind of resonates is like the idea of an installation. You know, I mean, when it's a solo show, especially when I put my work into a space, they are set up to converse with each other. You know, like, so each painting is set up to sort of, you know, converse with the painting beside it
Yeah.
and operate in a different way. And, you know, I see
Yeah,
the kind
there
of
is a
them.
dialogue. There is a
Yeah, and I see the
narrative.
kind of, I see an overarching theme in the work rather than
Yeah.
one painting holds it all. So it's important that you get to see them in the flesh. But then also the techniques I'm using are very much, you know, there's a lot of subtlety in them, and
Yeah.
they kind of need to be seen. There's texture, there's different like sort of washes and glazes, and these kind of need to be seen in the flesh to see, you know, what they're doing. And then
Yeah.
again, you know, like the sculptures I'm making as well, of course they have to be seen, you
No,
know,
no,
in the
they
flesh,
have to be seen.
because like they're,
Probably, yeah. Sorry if
but
I
but
interrupted.
also I think, no, no, you're fine. But I kind of, I just think as well, like the sculptures especially need to be seen in context to the
Yeah.
paintings, because I think for me, you know, the sculptures are disruptors. You know, I have always loved to sort of disrupt my paintings and make them uneasy. And the sculptures are this kind of step further into that realm where they're going to disrupt the paintings even more. And I think, you know, this is going to delight people and it's going to upset people. I think some people are just
No,
going to, like,
no.
you know, like kind of really struggle with that kind of disruption. But for me, that's so important, because, you know, art shouldn't be easy. Like, it shouldn't just be something we consume and kind of go, oh, that was a nice appetizer. And that's my fear about art just solely being on a digital platform. I think it's too easy to consume. It doesn't
Yes,
challenge as well. I mean,
it's
it's on a tiny little 4-inch screen, you know, and you're kind of like, oh, I've seen that, and just skipping by, and
yeah,
you're not
that
confronted
is
with
the
it, you
risk.
know. And I think, you know, you need to be submerged in it. You need to be in a show, and you need to be challenged by it. And I think when stuff is too easy to consume, you know, you're not challenged by it. You know, I can't
No,
remember the last time I seen an image on Instagram and went, oh God, I'm struggling with that painting. But I could name loads of shows that I've walked into and just stood in them and went, ah, my brain, you know,
I know.
and loved them for that, and left kind of going, that was a show that I'll be, you know, chewing on for a long time, you know, and that's important.
Yeah, because I know that nowadays so many, I don't know, just gallery or others, they are trying to find a way to use the augmented reality to find a
Mm.
way
Yeah,
just
yeah.
to give a chance to their collectors or just
Mm.
viewers to have an experience closer with the paintings or the artworks.
Yeah.
But anyway, I think, like you said, it's difficult, even with this now technology, even if it's the best and extraordinary technology that we can have and use for art.
Mm.
I'm feeling like I'm feeling like we have to stay close an artwork, because an
Mm.
artwork is communicating. An artwork has some vibration. You can find in a certain way some good vibes and feelings with an artwork, and you need that physicality to stay there
Yeah.
and
I mean,
really,
I think as well, like, artwork is slow.
yeah,
You know, it is just slow. And I think, you know, emotions and kind of feelings and thoughts and, you know, concepts, they're all kind of slow. Like, they take a while. Where I just think that the problem with, you know, social media
yeah.
and sort of digital kind of exposure is that it's quick. It's
It's
so quick.
too, yeah, too
And
quick.
and my biggest fear as well is that, you know, if you're looking at Instagram all the time and looking at art just that way, and you are an artist, my fear is that you'll start making work for the phone.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? That you'll start kind of punching up your images because they'll operate better on
yeah,
Instagram. You know what I mean? You'll
yeah,
crush the blacks in them. You'll kind of bring up the brightness. You know, all these things that end up really impacting on the work. And I remember having, you know, issues, kind of like a bit of a bad addiction to Instagram, and kind of would have been like think it was 2 years ago, I just stopped painting altogether, like for nearly 2 months, and I couldn't figure why. I go into the studio and I just couldn't paint. And I remember I was ranting at a friend of mine, like for about nearly 2 hours, and I left the conversation, and I was like, I just messaged him going, "I'm really sorry about that, man. I think I was just like, I think I just had too much of
Yeah,
Instagram. I think it's pushed me over the edge." So I ended up just logging out of it, taking it off my phone for a couple of months, and I could start painting again. And I found that there's just, number one, there's too many voices in my head from all these different artworks I was seeing. But then there was also this, you know, juxtaposition or cognitive dissonance where I was just sort of wanting to make work that was true to what I wanted to make, and then this like screaming maniac
mm,
Instagram beside me, you know, saying make work this way,
yeah.
and that was really an awkward place to be, and it kind of stopped me painting. And once I got rid of that, I was like, oh wait, there's my own thoughts, you know, and
No,
I was able to, you know, make work again that kind of felt a bit more truer to what I was trying to do. So yeah, so I think, you know, it's an amazing it's an amazing tool, but it should remain a tool. It
yeah.
shouldn't become an overbearing device
Yeah, I totally agree with
or
you
vice, should I
because
say?
they can create a big noise in our
Yeah,
brain, and they can disturb or distract our thoughts, and then there is no more creativity
yeah,
in genuine way. Just to mention creativity, has it's your creativity, because I think is a is really a genuine creativity that is coming from you, and you need the time to create
mm.
something is
No, absolutely, yeah, yeah.
we wanted that things is good. And talking about this exhibition and now your experience, really, I was curious reading one of your recent interview with Patrick Murphy, the director of
Mm-hmm.
the RHA, about the different approach of the collectors visiting your show and looking at your paintings, because I think Europe has a different background instead of America, and the approach that
Yeah,
can be different because the activation of the space and probably the visitors, everyone they are given something to change the
yeah.
body of your work.
Well, I think kind of there's like when I think about those experiences, I think there's kind of two things that come about is you know, context and culture, you know. And I think, you know, the context of the space and what's going on around it, like LA is obviously a very sunny, happy place, and there is this you know, overbearing kind of feeling over there that you have to be happy, you know. And you know, so I think people experience stuff in a very positive way. I mean, you know, that's a very simplistic view of looking at it, but I think kind of them, they, you know, they don't have maybe the deep history of painting that Europe has. You know,
Yeah,
especially a country like Belgium has a really deep history with it. So I think they maybe come to art in a different way. They don't have the baggage of the history. So that can be a very positive thing in a way, that they see the art purely for what it is,
yeah,
and what is happening right there and then.
yeah, based
Um,
on the intuition, probably they are
yeah,
more
exactly.
intuitive.
So yeah, and when you kind of like you know, in a country like Belgium, um, or I remember I did a show in Italy back in 2013, and it was similar, where people were very kind of you know, uh, you know, digging into the work. You know, they were seeing the sort of references I was making and pulling at it, and then, you know, seeing other connections that were maybe, you know, aloof to me. But so they're very, very different experiences. Like, you know, both are noteworthy and you know, appreciated. Um, but I think, you know, on a sort of nerdy painter level, it's so rewarding when, you know, when someone turns around and is able to pull out all these different things that you've been sort of, you know, working your entire life to sort of, you know, put in there. So so I think, yeah, they're very different. But then, you know, another experience I had is that I kind of was working with a gallery in Dubai for a couple of years, and
Mm-hmm.
then I kind of had an opening there, and a solo show. But I made work. I went to Dubai and kind of spent time researching over there, traveling around the country, and I kind of around the UAE and sort of kind of so the work was made with this kind of my experiences
Yeah.
there put into the artwork. So the artwork like was kind of one of the pivotal shows in my career, in that how the work operates today is traced back a lot to that experience,
Mm-hmm.
because it's quite challenging making it work. But I remember the opening; it was like the longest opening I've ever had. It was a 5-hour opening,
Oh,
no
yes.
alcohol, no alcohol,
Yeah,
which
of
is like so
course.
strange. Being an Irish artist, I was like, "What? You do this over?" But I remember like this opening, kind of going, "How am I going to get through this?" Like and more so just like openings, you'll either be chatting for the whole thing or standing around awkwardly, and I was like, oh my god, like just like the art scene in Dubai at that stage was maybe 6-7 years old. It was
Mm.
very new, like
Yeah.
a contemporary art scene, I mean, it was very, very new. But like there was really exciting energy with that. But I was kind of like, how am I going to get through this? But it turned out to be one of my favorite experiences, because the people were so inquisitive. I actually spent the entire 5 hours bringing little groups of kind of like 4 or 5 people at a go around the show and just talking through the work with them. And I think through the 5 hours, like I think we had like between 500 and 600 people visit the show at the opening. It was amazing. And now obviously I didn't talk to all of them, and I'm not that good. But there was a nice percentage that were really
Yeah.
just curious and kind of I wanted to talk about it, and I found that like kind of really invigorating. And I kind of wished more
Mm.
openings were like that. That people would just approach you and ask you to talk about
Yeah,
the work,
no.
because it's something that never happens in Ireland, like ever. And Ireland is a very small art scene, so you tend to know the people, or know of them. But there's not that sort of distance. So of course it's not
Hmm.
really going to happen. But I think it would be and I guess people are familiar with your work as well, so they know what you're doing. So there isn't that.
Yeah,
But,
probably yes. But at the
yeah,
same
but I think
time,
it'd be nice, a bit more kind of
yeah.
conversation around what people are trying to do, and
And talking about so now your experience in Dubai and in America and in Europe, what is happening to your career and especially for your collectors, how you are just trying to be in contact with them and try to deliver your work.
yeah. Well, I mean, I think in some ways, just that I'm between shows. I've been
Mm,
working for about the last year and a half on this show coming up at the RHA. So in some ways, it's kind of come at an okay time, because
okay.
I don't have like a big show on. Like I don't have a solo show. I don't. I'm in the middle of making, and kind of about a year and a half ago, I wanted to take time off to just experiment and look at different ways of working, and that's where the sculptures come from. So it's kind of come at an okay time, because I wanted time,
Yeah.
I wanted space, I wanted to just sit with the work and experiment, make some terrible works and not show them, and have that freedom. So it's like it's okay at the moment. I mean, the impact on the future is the
Yeah.
worry. I mean, just like, will collectors be traveling to art fairs? Will they be
Yeah.
traveling to other countries to shows? And like, will art markets become more localized? These are just things that we don't know. I mean,
Mm,
there's no proof either way. And all of it, well, there's two factors that are going to really impact on it. And it's how comfortable are people going to be flying,
yeah.
and what is the price of flying going to be?
Of
So
course.
if flights double or triple in price, that's going to impact artists and younger collectors, or collectors in general.
Yeah.
And if if people don't feel comfortable flying, that's going to impact hugely on the international art market, on art fairs, on bigger galleries, on smaller galleries, on all galleries. And that's obviously going to impact artists if they don't feel secure flying.
Yeah.
And then the sort of other element of that, especially for artists that are living in a country like Ireland, where we are a little island, and transporting work, how expensive is it going to be to ship work?
Yeah.
It's already very prohibitive, you know, shipping work from Ireland. Like if you are shipping paintings anyway large, like, and I'm not talking big, I'm talking just over 100 centimeters, the prices can be quite restrictive. And you know, if air freight goes up an awful lot in price, that is going to be hugely
Yeah.
restrictive, but mainly because galleries aren't going to want to invest that
Mm,
money in
that's
unknown artists or a difficult artist. Like, and I
yeah.
don't mean difficult person, I mean difficult artwork wise.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, and that is problematic because you know it's already difficult enough to get the work out there. So if galleries, you know, even if you're exhibiting with a gallery, if they're kind of like, well, you know, we don't want to do that follow-up show now because shipping is an extra $2,000, you know, yeah, that is a real factor. And galleries have budgets, you know, and
I know.
artists have budgets, and you know.
And I really loved just that nice man, that golden Brian and not Brain, that I found really like oh my god, really it's a genius. It's creating in my brain so many uh, just thoughts about that sculpture, the gold of the brain, and the name, and how you are playing with words. It's nice to see this dialogue, but I want to know more about this dark humor that you are.
Yeah, I mean, well, I think with the work, with the sculptures are I guess more definite. You know, the paintings are very, very open.
Mm,
Like there is an agenda with them, but you know they are still open, so you can kind of see them how you want to. With the sculptures, they're way less open. They're kind of like definite little things, but they're pulling on a lot of different things. They're pulling on my interest in history and artifacts and idols and you know urns and notions of worship and kind of like you know this idea of making these like little sacred objects. And you know they're kind of they're riffing on little ideas of golden buddhas and you know like
yeah,
talismans and all these kind of just different ideas. But then they're also you know pulling on you know little kind of like collectible toys you know that
yeah,
have kind of grown more and more in society. You know, grown men spending a couple of thousand on like you know a little figure, you know, from a movie or a cartoon, and I quite like those ideas as well. But you know, then just kind of like, you know, I think the idea of the golden, I was going to say golden brain, the idea of the golden brain is again just you know riffing on ideas that we kind of are just like a brain. You know what I mean? That's the center of our consciousness. I mean, there's a lot of arguments that there's more going on than that in different parts of the body and stuff. But you know, I'm nearly certain if you stick a skewer through your brain, you are not going to be the same. You know,
yeah,
you know, like you bump your head too hard, you can become a major asshole. You know, it's like
of
you
course.
know, the brain is very delicate, and so I kind of just like riffing on that mortality and the sacredness of the brain, and then you know to call a sculpture golden brine is like the ultimate dad joke. You know, it's just like
It's
so cheesy, but
yeah,
it's also just ripping on language and like that's kind of a way that I guess ties into the paintings quite directly. Like
mm,
I just love obscuring and pushing and pulling language. You know, it's like it's my favorite thing to do, and I do that with titles of paintings where like I'll choose like usually just like you know one singular word, and it can be taken up in multiple ways. You
yeah,
know, it's never just viewed from one angle. And you know the sculptures tend to try and want to emulate that. You know, sometimes with their names, sometimes with just what they're doing. That they're kind of they're open and closed at the same time. So you know, Golden Brian is you know, he's a sort of little version of that where he kind of looks like he could be a skull, he could be a vase. He's kind of
mm,
he's not really a sculpture. He's kind of like useless in a way, but, and he has a slightly shocked look on his face, and so you know, it's kind of just pulling on all those little elements, and then again, he kind of looks primitive. He looks like he
yeah,
could be from you know a different time and or a different place, and the sculptures all kind of have that in common that you know they're well sculpted, but they're made in a very restrictive way, like they're all coil wound. So they're all hollow, so they're difficult to kind of make. So they're a little bit kind of restricted in that manner. So they're kind of, there's always a slight bit of a primitive feel to them.
Yeah.
So like these things again are kind of important. And I think Golden Brine as well, like I wanted him to pull on and the notions of mortality, you know, and all the like a lot of, again, that's another thing that runs through this, through all the sculptures, this notion of the absurdity of death.
Yeah.
You know, the impenetrability of death, this kind of thing, we can't accept it even though it's around us all the time. And, you know, our brains are built in a way to not accept it, you know.
Yeah.
Like, you know, I know sometimes you start thinking about it too much and you get that sinking feeling and your brain kind of goes, whoop, get away from that, you know, and it shifts you onto something more pleasurable. And so there is an absurdity to it. And like a lot of the sculptures have that in common. Like there's these kind of little other ones that I'm making called grinners, and they've got golden teeth and they're just grinning very widely, you know, and it's this idea again of that kind of shocking notion of that this all comes to an end. And how do we deal with that? You know, we create art, I guess. You know?
Thank you so much for your time again, Damien. And I want just to thank you so much for this conversation. I think this conversation can help other artists to have a better view on this situation and the future, what is happening. So thanks a million for your time and for this lovely chat together. So thanks.
You're more than welcome. It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.